Hello, Simone. It's wonderful to have you here today. Today, we are going to be talking about the one area, the people who want all humans dead, the antinatalists, David Benatar, that they are right, which is David Benatar makes this argument that, well, people can learn to or come to, he uses like a boiling frog analogy here.
Okay.
Think that a genuinely terrible life is worth living. Like he's like these people who are like starving in Africa.
And who say, but I still want to live. I still wish I was born.
And he's like, this is proof that like you don't know if your life is any good because these people think their lives are good. And clearly from my privileged perspective, their lives are not good.
How dare you want to exist? You're incorrect.
What he is missing and what we will be going over is these individuals' subjective experience of both happiness and life satisfaction is likely higher than, or at least around the same as his own. I'd argue it's probably quite a bit higher than with some of the stats that we're going to go into. They are experiencing a better life than David Benatar. And this is where we have to talk about hedonism, the way you choose to spend your time, and red queening. So for people who don't know red queening is a scene from Alice in Wonderland where they say, you know, running as fast as I can, but every time they run faster, the red queen runs faster. So it's as if they're not moving at all. And the red queen is often used as an analogy with an evolution between predator and prey evolution. So the prey will develop some defense against the predator and the predator develops something that gives it an extra edge and then back and forth. But it's the same with happiness in your life. As you gain more things that give you like subjective experiences of happiness, you very, very quickly normalize to those things. And as such, pursuit of those things is an enormous waste of time. Just a complete waste of time. Like, it's one of the reasons why I think a religious life is so much better, or finding something to dedicate yourself to is so much better. And it's one of the reasons why the urban monoculture is so toxic.
In fact, I would argue that religious life is even a better, an austere religious life is better if you want to maximize hedonism, because the best way to begin to enjoy things again is to go on a dopamine fast. And most hard religions have those where you like have to give up some
like
kind of dopaminergic
or the Sabbath.
Exactly. And it's
Ramadan.
after that 30, I think it's a 30-day period. I was listening, I think it was an Andrew Huberman podcast interview with a woman who wrote a book.
Simone, you shouldn't fast to increase the amount of dopamine. The point being is that
I'm just saying, look, we respect that people have different objective functions, and some people's objective function is just to feel good. And if you want to be able to feel good, you have to go on dopamine fast.
But the point I'm making is that if your objective function is to feel good, marginally, you might feel 5% better than somebody whose life objective isn't to feel good.
Yeah.
And what we'll go over here is
actually, I would argue you're going to be a lot less happy.
I'd actually argue that if you try everything you can, even dopamine fast, everything like that, from the data, which we'll go into, you will likely live a less fulfilled life and a less happy life than your average religious person.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And if
I think you see a similar thing with mental health. I think when you want to be mentally healthy and it's like a big thing for you, you are way less mentally healthy because every time you feel sad or not perfect, you think it's a problem. And then you're contextualizing it as a problem, makes it a problem, and then makes it worse. And then you're ruminating it. And then suddenly you're actually really depressed, or you actually have a serious anxiety issue.
It's the same way that, you're right. People obsessed with mental health, like they end up having the worst mental health.
And it's the same with happiness. If suddenly for a moment, you're like, I'm not happy. Oh God, this is a big problem because my whole thing is I need to be happy. What do I do to make myself happy? I think this happened a lot with your mother. Where like happiness did matter to her. And then when it would be like a big deal to her when she wasn't happy and she kept searching for it in all the wrong places.
And she had all the money she could want to do things. She'd go to 5-star restaurants every night.
But she used to think like, if I just get this David Webb set, you know, that costs like $64,000, then I'll be happy.
Then I'll be happy. And
yeah.
it didn't
like,
never made her happy.
Then I'll be happy.
And she could never understand. She's like, why do you care so much about this wholesome lifestyle that you and your life live? She got really annoyed that I was like, wholesome maxing. And I was like, because wholesome maxing maximizes everything else down the pipeline, as we'll go over. But I think that this is a really important, like, this isn't like a side thing to note in your life. Someone was like, is this really worth the full episode to go into all the data on this?
I just feel like it's so obvious. And most of our audience probably understands this really well.
I don't think it is. I think a lot of people still in the back of their head will say, if I do this thing that makes me happy, I will be better off. If I, at least I need like certain amounts of happiness. At least I need,
Mhm.
and the reality is this is just not what the data says. Oh, if
Happiness is a false god. Period.
happiness is a false god. If I get the boat, if I get the whatever, like everything will be better. No, it
No,
probably won't be better.
no.
There's a few things that'll make a permanent impact: a good partner,
Yes.
wife, husband, kids, and religion. Oh no, we're the conservatives right all along. But we'll go into this. We'll go into this.
This is, I think, when you see like the average, when you look at those amalgam images of conservatives versus progressives, the conservatives look healthier and happier.
Yeah, they're like smiling, like that's
Yeah.
the core difference.
Yeah.
And the progressive facial like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
This is probably why, since records started in the US at least, conservatives have always been significantly happier than progressives. Because it turns out that, as the urban monoculture preaches, do whatever you feel would give you fulfillment, do whatever you feel would make you happy, do whatever you want to be validated for, like be validated for whatever you want to believe about yourself. Of course, this leads to the worst possible. It's almost like the conceivable lowest possible happiness and subjective feeling of fulfillment you could have in a life, attempting to maximize those things within a culture that affirms you for it. These people live literally the worst life a human is capable of living, even though our own like biology like updates for like no arms, no legs, no, etc. So we'll go into all this. All right. So I can start studies here before I go into studies. Thoughts?
No, let's go ahead.
All right, we're going to go one study here. Genes, Economics, and Happiness, a national longitudinal study of adolescent health. The study estimated the heritability of subjective well-being at around 33%, indicating that about 1/3 of the variance in individual life satisfaction can be attributed to genetic influences. So first of all, it's mostly genetic anyway. This is why it might make sense to do gene editing of your children or to do gene editing of humans. If you do care about happiness, the number one thing that's going to influence that is genes, more than literally anything else. Keep in mind, we're talking about a third here. We'll be looking at how little other things matter, like winning the lottery. Even during the period in which you've won the lottery, it does not bring happiness up by a third. Exploring the biological basis for happiness. World Happiness Report, a meta-analysis of multiple studies, including 55,000 individuals, estimated that weighted average heritability being at around 36%, 95% confidence interval at 34 to 38%, while the weighted average heritability for life satisfaction was at 32%, 95% confidence interval between 29 and 35. Genetics, Personality, and Wellbeing, a twin study of traits, facets, and life satisfaction that was published in Nature, a very reputable journal. This study found that the heritability of life satisfaction at 0.31, of which 65% was explained by personality-related genetic influences. Consistent effects on genetic happiness across lifespan and brain structure. This is in Nature and Human Behavior. This research demonstrated the genetic basis for general happiness levels appears to have a consistent effect on happiness and well-being measures throughout the lifespan across multiple ancestral backgrounds and multiple brain structures. So this isn't just one ancestry, i.e. one ethnicity. This is across ethnicities you see this heritability. The Happiness in Behavioral Genetics, an update on heritability and changeability, Journal of Happiness Studies. Recent metadata reported in a study indicate genetic influences account for 32 to 40% of the variation of overall happiness, subjective well-being, and life satisfaction. And then a review and meta-analysis of heritability studies in behavioral genetics. This meta-analysis that focused on a sample size around 60,000 individuals found the weighted average for heritability being at around 36 from 34% to 38%. This is well-being. While the weighted average of life satisfaction, 32%, 29 to 35%. So like, even if you're talking like within standard deviations, you're still getting like at the bottom here, like around 30%. These studies consistently show that happiness-related measures such as life satisfaction and subjective well-being have a heritable component, which estimates generally range from around 30 to 40%. So first and foremost, the number one thing that determines how satisfied you are with your life is your genetics. And this is why I support antinatalists having no kids. If you have this world perspective that is predominated by pessimism and always seeing the worst in everything and looking at people in poor countries and being like, how can they be happier than me? How can they be more satisfied than me? They must be delusional. You are wrong. It's not that they're delusional. It's just that the number one thing that affects your happiness is your genetics, and you appear to be low on that particular marker. In post, I'll try to look up in Nebula what our happiness happiness levels are. That's on the website.
Oh,
You
I'm
can look that up
sure.
while I'm talking if you want to try.
Yeah. And I mean, you could also, let's say you're pronatalist and really concerned about passing on depression. You can, because we did actually screen our children
For
for
depression, yeah.
depression, anxiety,
And they're
quite a,
unusually happy.
yeah, they are. I mean, well, who knows about all, we didn't have polygenic scores for all of
Yeah, the sad one didn't have his polygenic scores done. All right, so look this up, Simone, and I will keep going here.
Mm.
Lottery winners and accident victims, is happiness relative? So this study, interview-based study comparing 3 groups, lottery winners, paraplegics, and a control group. So obviously lottery winning, good. Losing your arms and legs, bad. Lottery winners rated their happiness from 4 out of 5 immediately after winning, but returned to a baseline of 3.5 out of 5 within a year. You lose all the
Within a
benefits
year.
of the lottery to happiness
Oh,
within a
ouch.
year. Paraplegics initially reported a happiness lower, 2.96 out of 5, but adapted over time and reached a 3 out of 5, similar to the control group. Now, no, they didn't go all the way back to control. 3 is the control group. So 3.5 isn't all the way down to the control group. They're mostly to the control group, the lottery winners. Conclusion, both groups demonstrated hedonic adaptation, returning to near baseline happiness levels after significant positive or negative life events. All right, next one here, subjective well-being and adaptation to life events, a meta-analysis. A study design, longitudinal analysis of large data sets tracking individuals before and after major life events, marriage, divorce, unemployment findings. Marriage increased life satisfaction by about 1 point on a 10-point scale, but this effect diminished completely within 2 years. We'll see other things with marriage. This is all marriages. Good marriages actually increase permanently, but we'll get to that in a second. Divorce caused an initial drop of 1.5 points, but individuals return to a near baseline within 5 years. So you lose the benefit of marriage in 1 year, you lose the benefit of divorce, it takes 5 years. And it's a much bigger negative than the happiness benefit to marriage, 1.5 to the 1, so 50% higher. Unemployment had a more lasting effect with a drop of -1 point that persisted for several years. Conclusion, positive events led to faster adaptation, while negative events like unemployment caused slower and incomplete adaptation. Fascinating. But it
That is
does show that,
interesting.
like, if you strive for hedonism, you're just not winning much. Did you
Yeah.
get the results on Nebula?
Yeah. So they do. Yeah, there are polygenic scores for depression and a bunch of other things like anxiety. I'm in the 18th percentile, binge eating disorder, 54th percentile, ADHD, 63rd percentile,
What about
bipolar disorder. Okay. So there's a well-being, and I'm in the 78th percentile for well-being.
So you're very high on well-being.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Characterized by high life satisfaction, positive affect, and absence of neuroticism, as well as depressive symptoms. Okay, so well-being is really the score to look at
You're
here.
in 79th percentile on that?
78th percentile. Well, I wonder
Wow,
where you
you're
are.
actually
That's
80th percentile. That's a winning. That's a
a
A
good.
minus there, but B plus.
Yeah, let's see where you are in well-being. I'm very curious. You're in the 72nd percentile for depression. So your
Ooh.
depression risk is much higher than mine.
Good thing we're screening for it.
But another score for your depression is 14th percentile. And that's the thing, is there are different polygenic
No, this doesn't
scores.
invalidate either score.
I know. They're just different things that may lead to, wait, what's this? Problematic alcohol use, but you're in the 50th percentile. But your alcohol use is not problematic. So,
Exactly. Okay, so go to well-being.
aha. Oh, you're just in the 46th percentile.
Oh, interesting. I would think that I was happier.
Yeah,
than you.
you'd be the happier go luckier person. Wait, these are just polygenic scores. Again, you got
No,
broad...
I can see why you are. You are way lower neuroticism than I am. Which is important to well-being.
Well, I'm way higher in systematizing and I have sensory issues. So I don't know. It all comes out
All
in
right,
the wash.
well, I'll keep going with studies here. Hedonic Adaptation Prevention Model. Study design, a 3-month longitudinal study involving 481 participants who experienced positive life changes, e.g. new relationships or promotions. Findings, initial well-being gains were around 0.8 points on a 7-point scale, but these gains eroded by approximately 50% within just 3 months. Conclusion, adaptation occurs through 2 mechanisms: declining positive emotions over time, increased aspirations for greater achievements. The happiness of millionaires. So study design surveyed over 4,000 millionaires about their happiness on a 10-point scale. Findings, millionaires with net worths between 1 million and 2 million reported an average happiness score of 7.8 out of 10, while those with over 10 million scored slightly higher at 8.0 out of 10. The increase in happiness was about plus 0.25 points, showing diminishing returns as wealth increases. Wealth contributes modestly to happiness at very high levels, but does not significantly alter overall well-being. Hedonic adaptation to positive and negative experiences. Study design reviewed longitudinal studies tracking well-being before and after major life changes. A person moving to a better neighborhood might initially rate their life satisfaction as increasing from 610 to 810, but this would typically revert back to 6 out of 10 within 6 months to 2 years. That's moving neighborhoods. I doubt that would be true moving to the countryside like us. My life satisfaction definitely increased permanently after moving out of a city to live in nature.
Agreed. I think that it's possible to have persistent acute negative shocks. Like you pointed out how winning the lottery and similar things like getting cancer or losing your legs, they can cause sort of short-lived shocks. But I think that there are some environments and lifestyles that cause the regular reintroduction of negative shocks from which you need to recover, which can cause a sort of permanent sadness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so here we'll look at some like a chart that was created by Perplexity, which I love that it created a chart on this when I asked it about for all these studies.
Perplexity is so wonderful.
Yes,
I know you're all about Claude, but I'm still very hooked on Perplexity.
Claude's my favorite, I gotta say. Although I use Perplexity almost as much. Claude's the best for religious stuff, which I do a ton of, and you guys don't see because you don't know that I probably work as much on the tracks as on all other podcasts combined. But you guys just see those and you're like, hey, by the way, if you want a religion, check out the track series. If you're like, hey, atheism, all the religions seem kind of stupid. This one isn't stupid. And it can make you genuinely happy with your life. And we are working to make it amazing, amazing, amazing.
It really actually is good. Like it's a little frustrating that Malcolm has this unique genius in like religious
in theology. It's like the one thing where I was like gifted was genius. I'm like now going over one, which I think is the best one, which is going to be the next one, which is Why the Jews. And it is going to be the most offensive one, even more offensive than the last ones. But it is, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good because it fixes so many theological problems for me. And it shows that it was always recorded in the Bible. Which makes it very different than something like Mormonism, where they have to rely on all new texts, all new whatever. It's just going back to the basics. Okay. So what can positively increase happiness? Okay. So a study analyzing European data of 1 million respondents, so very big, found that children increase happiness when financial difficulties were controlled for. And that's the important thing. If you look for studies that don't control for financial difficulties, you're not going to get a true view of how much children matter. And they'll all be like, oh, children neutral or not positive. Mm-hmm. Although it did find that children under the age of 10 brought more joy than teenagers. I don't know if that's particularly surprising to a lot of people, but
I think I've actually seen information that runs contrary to that. That actually parental satisfaction, especially female parental satisfaction, is lowest especially when you have toddlers. I get that like maybe ages 6 to 10 are really, really great. But I think that especially for, there's so many studies on this, but the ones that I've seen show that especially women are temporarily less happy when they have toddlers.
Well, I mean, that's because it's your duty to take care of them and deal with
the duty. It's the poop. It's the pee. It's the vomit. It's the gross. It's the.
Simone, I really appreciate that you make all these sacrifices for our family. And I think appreciation really increases one's life satisfaction as well.
I agree with you. Yes.
The Harvard study of adult development spanning nearly 80 years found that close relationships are the strongest predictor of long-term happiness. People with satisfying relationships at age 50 were healthier and happier at age 80. Now, note here, it basically means marriages. And this is the Harvard way of saying marriages. Because I decided to look, I was like, oh, what do they mean? Like friends? No, it's how good their marriage is. Marital satisfaction significantly reduced emotional pain in older adults, even physical pain, where people with good marriages did not report feeling worse on days with physical pain when they enter old age, which is really interesting.
Wow.
It also showed researchers felt that women who felt securely attached to their partners were less depressed and more happy in their relationships 2.5 years later, and also had better memory function than those with marital conflict. The like core things you need to be maxing for in life is a religion that you can actually believe and get behind,
a
good partner, and lots of kids. Just saying. Anyway, let's keep going here. Remember there's the one study that came out where people were like, oh, but it shows that women actually aren't happy when they're married, when their husband
Oh,
isn't around, and they took it to mean not in the room, and it
when
meant
their
the
husband is
husband
absent.
died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absent. As in like literally MIA. Like we don't know where he is.
Yeah, the other thing that really improves happiness is gratitude. There have been studies that show this. It's been associated with a 19% increase. So one of the biggest things other than genetics to life satisfaction is the amount of gratitude that you show. And that's likely coded for in your genes though. So, but what I would say is if you want to have a good marriage and a good relationship is build a habit of regularly showing gratitude to your partner and regularly sharing gratitude with the life that you have together. Gratitude should be the start of 50. I say me showing you gratitude. What percent of our conversations would you say start with that?
85, 90.
85%. Yeah.
So
I just
you're
run
so
around.
kind. You're so grateful and gracious. And the one thing that the Gottmans and the Gottman Institute, I think, really have right is that a core fundamental relationship stability factor is the percentage of interactions with your partner that are positive versus negative. Like the overwhelming percentage needs to be positive, and gratitude's like a leading indicator here.
Yeah. And so I basically just run around telling my wife how much I love her, which is pretty
You
crazy.
actually do though. There was this old Sabrina the Teenage Witch episode where I think she had a closet of compliments, or maybe it was a recurring theme in the show. I'm talking about like the one with the animatronic Salem. It was such a good
Yeah.
show. I'm so old. But you remind me of the closet of compliments.
We love you. You're beautiful. You're gorgeous. You're wonderful.
So empty. But it works.
And it is.
No. Yeah,
It
and
is
it
crazy.
doesn't matter. I have to learn how to compliment her better too. I can't just do generic compliments anymore. No. I need to compliment something specific she's done recently that has improved my life. And she's made it very clear she does not
Yeah,
take general
I'm a compliment snob. You can't compliment someone's fundamental underlying principles. You can't compliment the noun, you have to compliment the adverb or the verb. Something they do, your action, the way you did something.
And then somebody's like, "Oh, but does she compliment you all the time? Does she show you gratitude all the time?" And I'm like, "Well, she
I do.
does take care of the infants and make me dinner every day. She didn't used to, by the way. Dinner used to be my thing because I'm into like chefing and stuff like that. But I recently like sat down and was like, these are all my favorite recipes. She's gotten amazing at
Yeah, you
all
were
of
like, I wish that I could have Sichuan chicken. I wish that I could have like
and these
this
are
kind of
dishes I didn't know how to cook. Like these are like more advanced dishes. And
But
she's
thanks again to AI, you can do anything. And apparently I can make Chinese restaurant grade meals. Well, that and that magical Asian food supply store that only restaurant suppliers shop at.
yes. But hold on. Before we talk more about what we're eating tonight, because that's
Mm.
always the end of the episode, right? And I hope that I make other people, do reflect on how awesome your life is, if it is. If not, go, take care of things. But if your life is great, or keep working, work to make it great.
Make
Have
it
hope in
better. Be the red
energetic
up-pointed
yourself.
arrow of home math. Like do that.
I'd say, as our religion says, right, the Techno-Puritan faith is you have a duty to be happy, and happiness is a choice. And that's what the data says too.
Happiness, yeah, it is. It is.
Is in part a choice. What we mean by this is a part of your happiness you have control over is a choice. Obviously, a part of your level of happiness, as we've been discussing here, is just your biology, just your set point. But then outside of that, the variable that you do have control over is mostly a choice. E.g., you get to choose how you feel about the things that happen to you in your environment. Whether you see what other people might contextualize as a negative event as an exciting challenge, or a positive event as a negative. But we'll talk about religion now. Okay, let's go to religion. Let's contrast the religion.
Actually, I will say that I think both you and I have been in these positions of experiencing, I guess what you could call as like acute situational depression. Sometimes you just really need to get out of your situation. And if you feel no hope of the future, you can't remember what it feels like to be happy. You can't ever imagine a future in which you are happy.
Start over.
Yeah, get the hell out of there. Like whatever you can do, you may be suffering from acute situational depression, and just like completely change your context if you can.
And the thing that changes situation, you're right, it's changing context.
Yeah, like that for all my childhood bouts of depression where I was like, keen to end it and everything. That was it. I just I changed schools. I changed where I live. done. It was like over. It was
I
as
don't
if
like
nothing
how
happened.
wholesome this episode is. I would like to point out that some people are born with low genetic happiness and they need to be.
Okay, fine. Well, they
I'm
are
not
because they're
joking.
mostly antinatalists, and that's
They're
fine.
mostly
And
they choose to
they're
anyway.
doing their
Like,
part,
that's the thing,
Malcolm.
right? Like none of this requires like active external intervention. People who hate their lives
Handle
do
it.
not continue. And I wouldn't be surprised if human happiness has increased on average over time at the genetic level, especially since personal choices ended up increasing the number of kids you had.
Maybe.
So probably like last 300 years, 400 years. Meaning people in the past would have been much more sad than people today, which would be very interesting. I'd actually be very interested in looking at the well-being genes.
I don't think so, because I think sadness is correlated with a lack of dopamine, and you need dopamine to get up and do anything at all. So I think that there's too much that I think there's too high a correlation of depression and mortality in general. That and your immune system is more compromised when you're depressed. No, I don't think so.
Well, let's go into religious differences because this is the spiciest part.
Yes.
Saved it for
Yeah.
last.
Mm.
Happiness differences, world value study. So this study showed that Protestants reported the highest average happiness, 3.21 out of 4. Buddhists next, 3.17 out of 4. Roman Catholics next, 3.13 out of 4. And Orthodox Christian reported the lowest at a 2.72 out of 4.
So Greek Orthodox, we're talking?
Well, not Greek Orthodox, all the Orthodox. There's Russian Orthodox, there's Greek Orthodox, there's a bunch of different, or there's Romanian, I don't know. All the Orthodox grouped together, generally one faith with different patriarchs. It doesn't really matter. The point being is they generally believe the same thing. Orthodox, and we'll be seeing this over and over again, are like really unhappy. Like if you're choosing a faith and you would all care about your subjective well-being, do not choose Orthodox.
What is going on there?
I think it might be a genetic thing. When I think of Orthodox countries like Russia or Eastern Europe, I think of like genetically sad people. Russians are famous for this. Like
Yeah.
their famous like writings are about like being a cockroach or like hating
Yeah.
life or like I talked about this in other episodes. Like we even know like, is it not surprising to me that they'd have lower happiness rates?
Dear sweet mother of God, we're in Eastern Europe. Do you know if there's a train coming anytime soon?
Oh, yes, very soon. They are building it now. It's good you came in summer. In winter, it can get very depressing.
Or it could be something to do with the faith. But keep in mind, like, okay, the difference between Protestants and Catholics, right? 3.21, 3.13. It's sort of about the thing. Orthodox, 2.72.
Yeah, something's wrong there.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah. Okay.
Pew Research study, this is in 2019, in the US, 36% of actively religious people describe themselves as quote unquote very happy, compared to 25% of inactive religious or unaffiliated individuals.
Oh.
So you're significantly less likely to be happy
Hmm.
if you are unaffiliated. Similar gaps were found in Japan, Australia, and Germany in different studies.
Okay.
Now, what's really interesting is remember I was talking about the happiness study here,
Mhm.
the World Values Survey. Well, so you might be like, whoa, Protestants are happier than Catholics. What about life satisfaction?
Ooh. Okay.
Catholics in here. On a scale of 10, Catholics come out at 7.12 out of 10, where Protestants are at 7.07. No, again, it's not that different. It's very similar to the other one. So you're going to be slightly happier if you're a Protestant and slightly lower life satisfaction if you're a Protestant. Orthodox.
I feel like the absolution of sin through confession may help with this.
Maybe. I mean, it's a very sort of, I think with Protestants, there's more questions about, are you doing it right?
Yeah, there's a self-doubt. You can't be satisfied when the classic Protestant thing is like, I should be doing better. Like I'm not doing well enough. And then I think with Catholicism, it's more like, I went to confession, I went to church, I'm doing the thing. Okay, we're good.
Well, I mean, but figuring out what's true is also a personal responsibility with Protestantism.
Yeah, which is stressful because you have to constantly that creates cognitive dissonance, that creates doubt, that creates a lack of satisfaction. Yeah. Whereas like if you just I'm doing what the church says, they're the ones who've been paid to think. And I get to chill.
Think because I think that also leads to the higher levels of happiness is knowing that you personally are responsible. This level of personal responsibility for determining what's true likely leads to higher levels of happiness because when you're doing something that's aligned with your faith, you genuinely are like, but I'm like 1,000% sure about this, instead of I'm 1,000% sure about this because the authority told me. But Orthodox Christians here, okay, remember Protestants, Catholics 7.12, Protestants 7.07,
Okay.
Orthodox 5.43 out of 10. Like the gap is huge. What's going on
Wow.
here?
You guys, are you okay? Do you
Yeah.
want to talk? You wanna come over here?
Come join
And,
the techno Puritans. How happy am I out of 10? I'm a 10 out of 10.
you're an 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10. We're the highest. Where are
Where
you? Actually, okay, 10 out of 10 right now. Life satisfaction and happiness. Where are you right now?
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 for which one?
Both.
Both?
Yeah. What about you?
I'd say life satisfaction,
Mhm.
like a 9.9 out of 10. It would be very hard for me to have a look. I'm definitely going to go down as, given the increasing value of like falling fertility rates. Like, obviously, this is going to be a big issue. Obviously, I've carved myself out as one of the leading thinkers on this issue. Therefore, even if I'm not today known as like one of the leading intellectuals of our time, post facto, I'll definitely be known as one of the leading intellectuals of our time, which means that I've basically already secured my position as a leading intellectual in world history if humanity survives. Like, I've got a wife who loves me and who like is when I'm not loves me in like a gay way, but like, and I don't mean that in a bad. When I say in a gay way, you can love someone in a gay way, and it's like sweet and meaningful. I don't mean that in like a holistically negative. What I mean is in a like, I know that you're genuinely there for me and the kids constantly. That is huge. You know, you're pregnant with number 5 in terms of kids. I've been genetically successful. Financially, I've done okay. Like, even if we don't have jobs right now and our money is slowly disappearing and we need to figure out what we're going to do next, hopefully the game does well. In the school, we can find a way to monetize it, which we're working on, but we'll get there hopefully, right?
Mhm.
I'm not like hurting financially. So like, what could I want that I don't have right now? A second wife? Like, would I be happier? What more kids? You're doing one a year. What genuinely could I want that I don't have? A position in the administration? Maybe I'd be better off, but I do love what I'm doing here. And it just became public. I couldn't tell you guys this before, but my brother has a position at Doge. And so the family's already working on the important stuff. I'd also note here that the audience would probably be surprised the number of connections or things that I am tied to that I cannot tell you about, because people are like, wait until the press finds out, then you can talk about it. And for a lot of this stuff, we've just done a good job of keeping the press from ever find out. But my brother working at Doge, that was something that obviously eventually somebody was going to piece together. More followers. Yeah, I'd love more followers. Yeah, I'd love more watchers. Yeah, the show is small right now, but it on average is getting bigger over time. It has dropped significantly since the last election cycle, but I have faith that we're producing good content that helps people.
It makes me really happy that you are
my satisfaction
above 9 here. That makes me incredibly happy. I
Okay,
just
in
want
terms
so
of
desperately
daily
for you to be happy.
happiness, okay? You tank literally all the emails I don't like that cause emotional pain, all of the life work, taxes, everything like that cause emotional pain. I get to do whatever I want, whenever I want, basically every day. I spend most of it on intellectual labor, i.e. writing things, religious study, not like playing video games, although I get like 2 hours to do that every day as well, or play like chatbots. I get to so it was all of that. And I get a gourmet meal every day, which you started doing like 2 months ago or something, like learning how to make. And it's better than any restaurant I've ever been to because of my mom. You know, I've been to all the best restaurants in like Manhattan, all the best, like, you know, like best. Like, I'm talking like actual best, like $1,000 entree type restaurants. Not that they actually are. Like back when we went, and the best restaurants in New York were typically around like 300, 400 for like a meal.
What's disturbing to me though is I anchored to entree prices. Like, that was the most restaurant going I ever did when there was
and now it's like $1,000.
Yeah, but basically when we go to like a Chipotle, the price there is the price of an entree at like La Grenouille in Manhattan.
So anyway, I have had what is supposed to be, you know, I've gone to Michelin star restaurants. Your food is better.
Oh,
dramatically better.
Thank you. It means a lot
Well, it's
to me.
because you are making it for me, and you
Yeah, to your
actually care
tastes,
about the
exactly.
process.
Yeah,
You're not
most
making an
people
industrial
wouldn't
fish.
like it, but it's customized for your
I
taste
disagree. Your
specifically.
steak is some of the best steak I think I've ever had,
Okay,
and
yeah,
that's
okay,
like a
yeah.
generic thing.
I've figured out steak.
But anyway, enough me gushing over my wife. This is what we
You
mean, like the too much
exactly,
appreciation.
positive compliments. You are so
Probably
freaking
like 9.9 on hedonism as well.
What makes me sad though is someone said that the concept of love language is basically completely invalidated, that basically all people have all love languages. But one, I very much disagree because some love languages are like actively assaults
No,
to
I
me.
really, if you did what I did, which was just give me like
Just say
gratitude
nice
all the
things.
time, but didn't like handle my meals and handle the kids and handle the things that cause me pain, I would
You're like,
be
this is nothing to
dramatically
me.
less satisfied.
Yeah, service is my love language, and language is your love language. And other people like touches. If someone touches their love language on me, I'd be like, "You are assaulting me. You need to leave. Like, I need to be very far away from you. Do not."
No, I can't even touch her when she eats. She has to remind me. Like
I
I
can't
can't
be
like.
touched when I'm eating. It's too much. It's a sensory overload thing. I can only take like. I can't even eat at family meals anymore because with all the kids, there's too much noise, and so I can't eat food because it's too many things going in.
You
Anyway.
are amazing. Hold on. Almost done.
Almost done.
Okay.
Let's go. I'm sorry.
We've got the global flourishing study. People who considered religion important in their daily life scored 0.23 points higher on flourishing. Those attending religious services weekly scored 0.41 points higher. Recent US surveys, 2018 to 2022, nearly 1 in 3 frequent religious service attenders reported being very happy, compared to 1 in 5 non-attenders. That's huge. 1 in
That is
3 for
huge.
religious attenders, 1 in 5 for.
Oh.
15% of frequent attenders reported being not too happy, compared to 23% of non-attenders. These studies consistently show that religious individuals, especially those actively practicing their faith, reported higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction compared to non-religious or less religious individuals. The differences range from about 0.2 to 0.5 points on various scales, with some variation across religious groups and cultural contexts. Bam.
There you go. Religion good, kids good.
This is why you should lean into techno-puritanism. And the next tract, oh my God, it's going to, for those of you who doubt, for those of you who are like, oh, why would you go with the Christian tree rather than the Jewish tree of the Judeo-Christian branch? It's going to answer those questions. And I think
actually quite thoroughly. I'm not, like
we did an episode on it. We did a recording on it, and it ended up lasting the full recording for 2 episodes that we had planned on doing, and it was only half the tract. And she got so mad at me. She's like, Malcolm, we need to do a backlog.
Like, and then I went to bed an hour late that day because everything back. It's just like, I'm really tired. I'm so exhausted. It's
she's
first
pregnant
trimester.
Right now, so.
It's like, this is the hardest period to get through energy wise. And I'm just like, I do not. Malcolm, I didn't have the spoons for it.
You're going, oh, you spoony.
I spent all of my spoons. You used them all on a religion.
But it was like way better thought through than I bet you thought, and the evidence aligned way more.
Some behind the scenes, when Malcolm develops religious doctrine, one, he uses Claude to like question him and do all these things, but then he uses the Google Podcast Creator to have the podcasters comment on his writings, so that he can get sort of additional perspectives or thoughts on it, or hear it in a different remix, so that he then comes up with new ideas and new arguments and keeps going. And like,
it goes on forever. No, because I constantly like take whatever I've written, I put it into Claude, and I'm like, give me the best Jewish arguments against this. Give me the best like Orthodox Christian arguments against this. Give me the best, so you can just keep going, and then be like, okay, here's the counters. And I keep doing that until it can't come up with counters anymore. Sorry, I should clarify here. Can't give me coherent or compelling counters. Obviously, an AI will always give something, which is maybe a little obsessive. But look, if I'm challenging like a major theological doctrine, I need to
be careful, be thorough. I get it. God, okay, back on topic. What is the sort of takeaway here that you want people to have?
Everyone should follow my religion.
No, join techno-puritanism.
I'm joking. You can go to technopuritan.com.
Techno-puritan.
Approved by the IRS. As a real religion. But what I like about it is that it doesn't like bring in new ideas. It goes back to the original text and tries to follow what it actually says, and shows that what it actually was a materialist monist religion, which most people would call an atheistic religion or a secular religion, which is really fascinating to me. I didn't expect it would align with that, and that seems insanely supernatural to me that it would. But anyway, so we go back to that stuff. If you are, but if not, stick with your existing religion, go to your faith. Unless it's Orthodox, like maybe you guys need to like look into that. Like what?
Yeah, if you're sad and you also happen to be Orthodox Christian, maybe try something different.
So there's that little one. Is that the Orthodox is like something's going on there? I might want to dig into like why are Orthodox? We should have an Orthodox like expert. I was talking to one recently who's a fan of the show to be like, why are you people so unhappy? And another you people. No, actually, another interesting thing about Orthodox, and maybe this aligns with why they're so unhappy, is if you look at fans of our shows. So we have a lot of overlap with other religious shows like Paul Vanderklay and stuff like that, or Meaning Crisis stuff. He always talks about the Ortho Bros, which is like apparently a big part of his audience is Orthodox individuals. Other than this one fan I met at like a religious event who's an Orthodox like clergy member, like apparently high clergy member, because he's got like a gold cross, which is apparently a big thing in Orthodox.
Ooh, okay,
you start with like a normal cross, and when you get bigger, you get a gold cross. But we've never had an Orthodox fan reach out once. The biggest fan base we have, and people are like, who's your biggest like fan base? In terms of like any individual fan base, I say over 50% of the fans we communicate with are Haredi Jews. Like, you'd agree with that? Over 50% of the fans we communicate with are Haredi Jews?
Yeah, I feel like, and that's an indication that this is the population that is most engaged with religious doctrine, but not only internal, in terms of like cross-disciplinary attempt to truly get deep on religion.
And we are an actively, and we are an actively, if there was a word for like being racist against Catholics, we are like an actively anti-Catholic show.
But I think Catholics don't really pick up on it because Catholics are just dealing with all their own Catholic stuff. They don't look to others' opinions. They don't care. Yeah.
They don't care at all. So we have a bigger Catholic audience than Protestant audience. Generic Protestant.
You mean Orthodox Jewish audience?
No, we have the biggest percentage of our audience is Orthodox Jew. Then we have a huge chunk that's Catholic, very big chunk that's Catholic. Then we have a probably equal chunk to the Catholics of Mormons. And then we have a decent chunk of Protestants. And then we have a lot of like atheist type people that are like looking for religion again, but no Orthodox. It's very interesting. And so it might be whatever makes our show different than Paul Vanderklay's show is what makes Orthodox people less happy. Is that, I don't know. I'm going to just assume it's genetic and nothing else.
I think that if I had to guess, that would be it.
I mean, also they have terrible fertility rates. One person said it was just because of like mutations caused by the Chernobyl disaster, which could be. I mean, it did really hit the Orthodox parts of the map more than other parts.
Really? And the radius was that high?
No, the radius was enormous.
Okay.
It covered like a huge area, like the big clouds from it that caused permanent genetic effects. In like I'd say like maybe like 50% of the world's Orthodox population.
I consume so much pro-nuclear propaganda that like my impression was like, oh, Chernobyl wasn't that big of a deal.
Chernobyl was that big of a deal.
It actually was. Okay. I need to broaden my perspective a little.
All right. Well, I love to see the happiness ratings of average members of our show. You guys can sound off in the comments. Life satisfaction, daily happiness. But again, like my daily happiness and life satisfaction, if it's hurt, the reason it's not 10, the reason it's 9.9 is because it's so high that I'm convinced I must be in a simulation.
No.
Anyway, dinner tonight. We're doing hash browns. You learn how to make homemade hash browns.
I need to start the scratch hash browns. So I'm gonna run and
and boil down I think the main reason why day 2 curry is so much better than day 1 is because
it's been simmered down. So I'm gonna simmer it down for a long.
And have you been using coconut milk in the curry?
No.
No,
I'm not adding coconut milk to it. That just waters it down more. If you want a coconut curry, we can do a Thai coconut curry, but then we do a Thai coconut curry.
Next curry will be coconut curry.
Good. All right.
I love you so much. Here, I'll just plug that.
Although you still have in the Faraday box I made for you, that giant charger thing.
So Simone has giant batteries throughout our houses in Faraday cages.
Just in case. It would be so annoying if you have all these backup batteries, that can power appliances like refrigerators and other things. And then the solar flares hit and they don't work. You'd be so mad.
You built your own Faraday cage. I love that as well.
One,
With tinfoil like a crazy person.
They're- and tinfoil tape, which I didn't know was a thing. They're incredibly expensive to buy. And
Can you explain to our audience how to make a Faraday cage? Like the more you know.
the more you know. Yeah. So you take a cardboard box that is good and thick and sturdy, and it will fit whatever it is, the battery or electronics that you're trying to protect. And then you put the objects inside or whatever. I'm actually sorry. Before you put the objects inside, just make the freaking box. So you take heavy duty tin foil and you tape it onto the box using foil tape so that there's also foil at all the seams. And I do multiple layers just in case there's any part that might be permeable. And then since I'm using cardboard boxes that like just open and close and I'm not sealing them, I make sure that they fully seal by putting like an additional layer of cardboard that's fully lined in between the top flaps. And then I put something heavy on top to hold it closed. You'll know that the Faraday cage is properly working most likely if you put your cell phone inside and then try to call it from another phone and it doesn't have reception. So that's kind of your...
Did you test the boxes?
Mm-hmm. So that is your method for verifying whether they work. And it is important for solar flares to not only protect some backup devices like old laptops or something that you might want to be able to use that are, of course, flash drives, important things like that, but also some wires because solar flares can fry wires in addition to electronics, like charging cords and stuff like that.
Two other things we should probably get handled. Have a backup of Wikipedia somewhere.
One of our friends does.
Yeah, but we should as well. And we should have some boxes of ammunition for all of our guns in the attic.
Yeah, we should. We need to buy more.
Just for apocalyptic scenarios, we need to, shoot off the...
Well, once I, reach that level of that stage of pregnancy where I start nesting, it's always...
You always do. She always starts getting guns. When there's this stage of the pregnancy that I don't know what to call it, but it's like the gun crazy stage.
It's the zombie prep period.
We need more defenses.
Well, isn't it great that our oldest son, Octavian, is already in that mode where he wants to like fortify the house and prep for zombies and vampires and Krampus?
He knows what's up. Okay. NatalCon is coming up in Austin in late March. Very little time left to get your tickets. If you want that, you can use the word Collins to get a discount. Again, we don't run this. We don't choose the prices. But from what I know now, they're still in the red. So if you want to complain about high prices, well, the guy who's doing it is putting up the money to do it right now. So that's why the prices are high, because it costs a lot to put something like this on. It also means that this might be the last year, at least for a while, until the movement gets bigger, that we end up doing this conference.